Hi everyone, my name is Gwen and I am a orthopedic and vestibular PT for Limitless Physical Therapy out specifically in our Greece office. I'm super pumped today to be talking to you guys about getting you back in action, busting myths about back pain. So what this presentation is going to look like is walking through first talking about some general myths about back pain and pain that can be related to your back, but then talking about how physical therapy and movement in general can help get you back moving, help your back not hurt as much anymore, and get you back to doing what you want to do as well. Looking here first a little bit more about Limitless, just so you guys can get a better idea about our philosophy and what we do through physical therapy. Most importantly, we are on a mission to grow a thriving community that inspires the best health outcomes. What this looks like is working with people from all walks of life. Every time you come in the door at Limitless, you're a part of our community, and that makes it so exciting and so fun for us to come to work every single day. Problems that we get to work with that people might have can be related to pelvic health related conditions, orthopedic conditions, imbalance and dizziness, and so much more, just to be able to get you back doing what you want to be doing with more function and more fitness. Our locations specifically are in Victor, New York, Brighton, New York, Greece, New York, and Cortland, New York as well. So there's me, I'm Gwen, there on the right-hand side or left-hand side of your screen, depending on how you're looking at it. But then also my colleague and coworker, Byron, presented our in-person workshop as well. First and foremost, going through our agenda here, these are just some of the heavy hitters we'll be talking about. First, talking about low back pain language, stuff that we can hear both from different medical providers, potentially our friends, family members, in the media, within Google and everything there. Then moving on to just prevalence and how many people have different types of low back pain in the world and across the country. Then we'll dive into the facts, what PT looks like, and then asking, first and foremost, who do you know that needs our help? And we'd love to be able to have an impact on growing community throughout Limitless as a whole. So recognizing the elephant in the room here, there can be so many things, so many confusing things, especially recognized with that within the medical world, specifically about low back pain. There can be so many different terms, so many different words, feelings that everyone can experience if you've ever had some form of low back pain before, especially if you're seeing different medical providers and you might be getting a list of potential situations that might be going on in your back. But there are so many words associated with low back pain and medicine in general, especially when imaging gets involved. There can be just everything that's going on anatomically is there. We are recognizing here that we're happy to work through some of these terms with you because that can definitely be very confusing and scary for sure. So recognizing that as well, but also recognizing that as humans, we are incredibly strong and our spine is incredibly strong. It can move in all different directions, and that majority of people do have some form of potential herniated disc or history of herniated disc, for example, and still function at a very, very high level. So we're happy to walk through this as well, but also recognizing that there's a lot of scariness that can come along with this. Next, diving into the prevalence and thinking if you've ever talked to someone else in your family or some of your friends, there's probably been people that have said before that they have some form of back pain or low back pain, whether it's a chronic thing or it just happens every once in a while. But you are not alone, for sure. 619 million people with low back pain worldwide in 2020. And this number has been projected to grow to about 843 million people by 2050. That's definitely a lot of people. Low back pain is the leading cause of years lived with disability globally, unfortunately. So that has surpassed things like cardiovascular disease, for example. So it's definitely a big impact, not only on our local community, but our worldly community as a whole. And then looking into the facts that can be related to this just with healthcare costs in general, from 1996 through 2013, $30.1 trillion of personal healthcare spending was disaggregated by 155 conditions, age and sex group, and type of care. Spending on low back pain and neck pain in this study, as well as diabetes, increased the most over the 18 years by an estimated $57.2 billion and $64.4 billion respectively, thinking here that $57.2 billion number going with spending on all forms of things related to low back pain and neck pain. So it's definitely something that we see and we recognize that it impacts a lot of humans worldwide, but it definitely has a cost associated with that, not only physically, mentally, and emotionally, but a true financial cost as well. So something that we do at Limitless that helps us be able to describe and understand a little bit more about, okay, someone walks in my door and unfortunately has some sort of low back pain, but are there buckets or avatars, as you guys see on the screen here, that can help us differentiate the different types of low back pain and what could potentially be going on, but then most importantly, how can knowing what's potentially going on, which we'll talk about in the next few slides, knowing that helps us be able to deliver such a stronger and more in-depth treatment platform to say, okay, we know what's going on and we know generally how to be able to treat this appropriately for the condition. So 3 big buckets we'll talk about here generally includes things that, you know, you might hear or you might say to yourself, wow, yeah, it really hurts when I bend over to pick something up, bend over to tie my shoe. If I sit in a car for too long, you can kind of be flexing your back there. So that avatar there is looking at someone who their back, for whatever reason, doesn't like to be bent or in a flexion position. Conversely, looking here, kind of this picture here is a little dramatic, but thinking here, wow, my back feels fine if I'm sitting, if I'm bending over, if I'm picking something up. But when I go to stand up, that's when it really hurts. Or when I go to lean backwards, that's when it really hurts. If I'm walking for a long period of time, it can start to hurt over that period of time as well. Or just simply enough, it feels fine when I'm sitting, but as soon as I stand up, that's when my back starts to hurt. So that's essentially your back doesn't like a form of extension, whereas the first one we're talking about, that your back, for whatever reason, doesn't like a firm form of flexion. And then the last one here, thinking it kind of generally hurts all the time. It might hurt when I bend over to pick something up. It might not. It might hurt when I stand up or when I walk. It might not. It might hurt when I twist, only when I carry things. There's a lot of different variables that can fall into that one. And that's recognizing that we see people with all these different kind of general types of low back pain, but we are fortunate enough to be able to help and work with all of them along the way. When you come in for your initial evaluation and throughout our whole plan of care here at Limitless, we'll constantly be asking these questions to be able to get a little bit of a better idea of what we call ags and eases. So essentially looking here, what makes your, in this case, back pain worse and what makes it better, just so that we can be able to not only be able to tailor our plan of care, but also understand what kind of stuff you've already been doing for yourself to be able to help remedy the problem and just build off of what you've already done and done for yourself as well. So here are the facts here. This is a little roadmap that we're looking at, again, linking into trying to figure out essentially what's going on. That's the most important part. Recognizing that potentially you're coming from a different medical provider who recommended that you come to physical therapy, or you're just coming in the door on your own knowing that you need to do something about this. Either way, as soon as you come through our doors and we start that initial evaluation, we're going to help try to figure out the fire, essentially. So the fire being whatever your symptoms are. We're going to try and figure out what's going on, what's potentially causing them. Going back to the previous slide when I mentioned figuring out what makes your back pain here potentially worse, but what makes it better if there are things that you figured out along the way that do make it worse or make it better. That way we can start to form our general hypothesis list of, okay, we think, just based on what you're sharing with us and your story so far, this is potentially what we're thinking about is going on. But then diving in deeper, looking at potentially things like your range of motion. If we press on your back, does that make it worse or make it better? And just really dive into a more dialed objective exam, so that we're taking your story and everything you're sharing with us, but then also seeing what you look like when you're in the door with us and being able to figure out a little bit more of, hey, what's this fire going on? But then most importantly, once we get all that information, great. Now we have a better idea of how we can start to put that out, which we'll dive into the next slides here. So that's moving along. We figured out the fire. We're going to stop 2 now. trying to figure out how can we put out that fire. So really leaning into the eases potentially that you've already been doing for yourself, but then if we can dial in a little bit better now that we know what's going on, we can start to figure out movement strategies and different things that can help bring down the fire and bring down your symptoms. That allows us to open the door for stop 2 here, to be able to build back up. So we fully recognize that movement is a very strong and powerful thing in our lives. Our bodies are built to move, but we also recognize that when pain and discomfort and any sort of symptoms are present, movement might not be the answer right away, or different types of movement might be the answer first before we can get you back to doing a deadlift or running or picking up your kid or your grandkid from the ground. There might be some things we need to do first that opens the door then to be able to say, great, now you don't have back pain when you bend over and pick up light like your phone off the ground after dropping it. So now we got to build you back up to be able to lift your potentially 20-pound grandkid off the ground, and just stepwise fashion there as well, all without pain once we've been able to put out that fire. Continuing on the facts here, so bringing over our stops from the previous slide. So we have stop 1 is figure out the fire, stop 2 is put out the fire, stop 3 is build it back up. At the end of the day, like I said, once we can figure out the variables involved related to your back pain, and we can figure out what makes the symptoms feel better or even resolve in the moment, we can utilize our body's natural strength and capacity to reduce overall symptom provocation and irritability. But we're definitely not stopping there. We definitely want to be able to recognize that, great, we've gotten you to a point that, hey, you don't have any back pain at rest anymore with kind of simple activities. But humans are movement creatures, and there's so many times that we want to be able to help you get back to all the functional fitness things you like to be doing, whether that's hiking, whether that's running, whether that's, just carrying a bunch of groceries in from your car, trying to make that one trip instead of making multiple trips. We recognize that importance, and we're happy to get you there. So once the symptoms have continued to resolve, we need to start building overall capacity and functional strengthening to not only get you better than you were before, but to reduce the risk of further re-injury in the future and just make you an overall just more functional and more capacity building within your body. So this is broken down into kind of our 3 steps here as well, but definitely stop 1 and 2, are vital and happen very early on in our plan of care of figuring out, again, when you walk right in the door, we're trying to figure out what's going on, but then how can we bring the symptoms down to little and nothing along the way. But definitely stop 3. I'm pretty biased, but this is a really fun stuff. It's really diving into a point where, hey, you're not in pain constantly anymore, which is phenomenal, and that's the big mission. But then the extended mission, I like to call it, is building everything back up. It's your body has the capacity and the energy now to say, great, I don't have to worry about my back pain anymore. I get to be able to think about all the things that I've been missing, or all the things that I have been kind of thinking about but putting on the back burner because didn't think I had the capacity with my back pain there to be able to do those things. Then it's really dialing in to say, great, what do you want to do? We've opened up the door. This is so exciting. And being able to build out an extended treatment plan to help build just overall capacity and endurance for your body to be able to do that. That's so fun. That's where we get to talk about all of our goals and our why behind why we're humans and why we want to move and do all these things. And it's so much easier and so much more efficient to do that without any sort of pain. So that's super helpful for us. Some of the things that we do as well, especially in that put out the fire phase, is that kind of, we see it on the slide here, but there's different things as in like manual therapy intervention, potentially cupping, but also just progressive loading. So again, using our deadlifting example or picking up your grandkid from the ground, when you have back pain potentially upwards of a 6, 7, 8 out of 10, that's really uncomfortable. We're not going to hand you a weight right away that's 20 pounds because you just told us that picking up your 20-pound grandkid from the floor is very painful. So we're going to figure out, A, if we bend over with no weight and pick up no weight from the ground, is that painful or is it not? And then work from there. If it is painful, then we're going to dial that back and do some other symptom reduction strategies. But if it isn't painful, we're gonna load as much as we can just to overall build up that capacity along the way. Another really, really strong thing and something that we really value talking about is that when you walk in the door and you say you have back pain, you just don't have back pain just to us. We're here to treat your whole body. And like we said before, communities are a really big environment here at Limitless. So recognizing that, yeah, Mary might walk in the door and she's here because she has back pain. But we're here to work with Mary as a whole human, because recognizing that in any walk of life, when there's some sort of pain or dysfunction in the body, our overall lifestyle factors can have a huge impact on potentially the cause of the pain, but definitely the rehabilitation of the pain or discomfort feeling. Big things that we'll hit on from day one and throughout your plan of care include sleep, stress, and nutrition. So looking here that we're recommending daily recommendation values of about 8 hours per night of sleep. But looking at here, potentially recognizing that you don't necessarily need to sleep more. If you feel like you're getting 8 hours of sleep and you're really frustrated because you feel like you're sleeping all the time, but not getting good sleep within those 8 hours, it's recognizing that potentially you need to sleep 9 or 10 hours, depending on the human and depending on what you're doing with your daily life. But really, it's dialing in. Maybe we need to sleep better. Maybe we need to figure out strategies that we can do some sort of nighttime routine that just sets this stage a little bit better for sleep and just our overall sleep environment. To utilize potentially those 8 hours might be right for you, but we need to be a little bit more efficient in there and help prep a little bit with that. So we're happy to go through situations like that because sleep does help recovery so much. The next one is looking at stress. Is that our body's response to internal and external stressors is massive. So there's can be things like internal stressors, such as some sort of back pain in this case, some sort of inflammation or sickness or illness going on. But then an external stressor is pretty much could be anything in the external world. It could be, potentially situations within your job, within your family, within, maybe your car broke down the other day. It's recognizing all of those, and our body needs to hold the capacity to be able to deal with these stressors, both internal and external, but that can be a lot, and that can definitely hinder our body's ability to recover and to heal itself, especially in situations of pain discomfort. So again, we can definitely talk through different stress management and stress reduction strategies, especially through the lens of overall lifestyle factors and movement strategies as well. That leads us into nutrition, looking at kind of daily recommended values of protein, water, fruit, and vegetable intake, as well as recommendations for exercise within that. Knowing that these recommendations for exercise in general across lifespan is that as movement is better. Ideally, again, our humans are built to move, so we want to be able to facilitate that, but nutrition especially is what can help facilitate movement a little bit more, especially with protein, water, fruit, and veggie intake, just to create a well-balanced meal there. A total of 22,948 participants were enrolled in this NIH study from 2021, looking at the effects of stress and chronic low back pain. Among those 22,948 individuals enrolled in the study, 8,473 were included in the analysis after excluding those who were under the age of 50 due to lack of investigation just in this chronic low back pain population. So this study really looked at individuals above the age of 50 because there's just like a lot more information about chronic low back pain in this population. The results of this study, most importantly, looked and confirmed that the severity of stress showed a significant positive association with chronic low back pain. So recognizing here that there is pain, discomfort within the low back pain region, and stress has such a significant impact on that. In particular, severe stress was associated with a 2.8-fold increase in risk of chronic low back pain compared to general population. Again, 2.8-fold increase in risk of chronic low back pain compared to the general population. So saying here, if you have stress, you are 2.8 times more likely, or have an increased risk, I should say, of developing chronic low back pain just compared to general population here. recognizing here that overall lifestyle factors do create such a big impact on our body and our abilities to work through and deal with, especially our internal stressors, but not only our external stressors, and being able to recognize that sleep, stress, and nutrition fit into all those categories as well. So again, when you walk in the door, you're not just your low back pain, you're everything else as well. And that makes it so fun for us. So we've already talked a bunch about it, but diving in a little bit more and just talking through what specifically PT looks like, but then specifically on our end, what limitless physical therapy looks like and how we work with our individuals that enter our community. So most importantly, every session and every plan of care that we look at is tailored to the needs of each individual patient. So in the lens here that we're looking at with specifically low back pain, there might be potentially 8 or 9 people on my caseload or my community that have some form of low back pain, but each of those is a different human, most importantly, and recognizing that's the standard. So all of their plan of cares might look a little bit different, even though they all, on their script or all their pain initial report is that they have low back pain. But everyone's an individual, and we want to be able to tailor each session and each plan of care to their specific needs. Going back to, again, not only their low back pain, but those lifestyle factors we talked about before, because everyone's got different stuff going on. So this starts with a comprehensive evaluation to identify your unique story and your goals. So this goes back a couple slides again of figuring out those variables. So again, diving a little bit into specifically your low back pain in this case. When did it start? Was there an accident that occurred? Did it just kind of start on its own? What makes it worse? What makes it better? The timeline of those things. But then specifically, again, the whole human of, thank you so much for sharing about your symptoms and what you've been going through, because that's a lot to share. But then it's also, okay, what are we getting you back to? Not only trying to help you get rid of this pain, but what does that get us? What does it get us movement wise in the future, and everything you want to be able to do with that? So that's a really fun part for us. But then throughout the rest of your treatment plan here, we're going to have intentional interventions geared towards moving the dial from pain to function to thriving. So again, talking about bringing those symptoms down or putting that fire out. Once we figured it out, we're going to put that fire out, but then do the fun stuff, that stop 3 that I mentioned back a couple slides ago, of building back up and really dialing into, great, now that we've been able to put the fire out of your low back pain and figure out what kind of stuff moves that needle, we're going to be able to load and move in ways that we want to be doing, all without low back pain that you've been working through before. Through all of this, especially with the individual aspect, you're going to have consistent open communication with your PT. So obviously that occurs when you walk in the door every time for your session. We're going to be right there working with you, and that is so fun for us. But then also have avenues through this app, which you guys are most likely watching this recording on as well. But then through our home exercise programming app, there's a messaging feature with there, as well as we have our emails listed on our business cards and on our website as well. So we're happy and excited to have just this consistent open communication, not only when you're in the office, but also when you're out of the office. And hopefully when you graduate, we recognize that you're still part of our community. So extended beyond that, we want to keep hearing your story and keep helping out and be part of your community as well, as you go along throughout your thriving part of life. So looking here again, going through all of our slides, very much appreciate all the time that you guys have taken to listen to me get a little bit too excited. But it's really fun for all of us to be able to work with everyone that walks into our door and within our community, and be able to move that dial and move that needle on the dial from that, your painful, uncomfortable feeling, to then that super fun part, that stop 3 of building everything back up and getting you back doing what you want to be doing. So looking here again, thinking if you or someone are interested in coming to Limitless and figuring out potentially what's going on with your low back pain or anything else that restricts you from doing things you want to be doing or are impacting your life in a way, we are more than happy to welcome you in. With the slides that you're watching right now, they don't have our contact form associated with it. That was within our live call, but you're more than welcome to call our office, shoot an email over to our help email, reach out to us on social media and stuff as well, and we'll get you in the door, working with any one of our PTs at any one of our 4 locations. Then we get you in for that initial visit. This is a 1-hour one-on-one visit of an initial evaluation, going through some steps I've talked about already, but getting your story, figuring out a little bit what's going on, and then getting you moving, just to be able to paint a little bit better picture of what's going on as well. After that visit, we figure out what plan of care works best for you. So what that looks like is how many times and how long we think, based on what we're seeing from both you telling us your story and how you're moving on that initial visit. How long is that realistically probably going to take, and involve of you coming in the office, but then also doing different aspects of home exercise programming to help move that needle on the dial a little bit more. Those plans come within our follow-up visits. Typically, this looks like about twice a week for 6 weeks. Again, knowing that we're controlling and looking at a ton of different variables, especially early on, getting you in the office about twice a week is what really helps us recognize those variables and manipulate those variables in a controlled fashion, to really be able to figure out what's going on. And then as we go on, we can extend that plan of care as needed. And then graduation. This is so fun for us. It's so exciting. It's almost a bittersweet moment, especially depending on your case. But it's really fun. It's where we get to see, our patients and members of our community have worked so hard and have come to us initially in times of need, and recognizing that as well. But then growing in such capacity and such empowerment happens every day in our office. So it's so fun to see people graduate and ring the bell, but then also knowing that, hey, they're maybe not coming in the office twice a week or once a week anymore, but they're always part of our community and always being limitless, which is really exciting, and it's really fun for us. So we're more than excited to connect with you guys in the future, and definitely don't be afraid to reach out to us in any capacity, and help you either get in the door or help someone else that might need our help along the way. That being said, I know I'm not live right now, but my email is there, as well as Byron's, who led our in-person workshop. So happy to answer and talk through anything else a little bit more, at least via email right now. But then also very much looking forward to meeting you all in person, if you do feel that you need, or someone else you needs our help in any one of our offices. We're more than excited to work with you and happy to do it. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to me today, and taking that next step in recognizing that potentially you need some help with your low back pain, but then anything else in the future, we're more than excited to work with you. Thank you all.